Let's talk about some of Google's dark patterns. No one would need an agency if Google wasn't crooked. Google has a bunch of different schemes in place to essentially trick small businesses into spending more than they need to spend in their ad accounts. They've been doing this for years, and it gets worse every year. One of the reasons for this is Google, they have an expectation of 25% year over year revenue growth. Google's first obligation is to its shareholders, not to its advertisers. This is a mature market. It's really difficult to grow a business that's already fully mature. So the way Google grows is by squeezing more out of the clients it already has. It tried to do this with sort of white hat methods at first, tried to convince people to spend more. Google spent a ton of money and effort trying to convince everyone to be a performance marketer and to spend as much as possible on last click. And then it tried to convince people into doing more than last click. So it reached the limit of what it could do with education, and now it is fully in dark pattern mode. So what are some of the dark patterns? So here's 3 dark patterns we can talk about that rob small businesses of money. There's no other way to put it. It does not benefit the business at all. It only benefits Google. So one of them that's been in place for a long time is the daily budget limit. So most people expect that if they set their daily budget cap at $100, that Google's going to spend $100. But that's not how Google behaves. If you set your daily budget cap at $100, Google will spend $200. It will spend that through at least 14 days, roughly. It'll spend that through half of a month. It'll spend double what your expectation is. And then it will start to dramatically reduce what that spend is to almost a screeching halt. So the way this works is the rule is that Google says that your daily budget, if you set it to $100, that you should spend roughly an average of $100 over a 30-day period. So in practice, what happens is you set your budget and the spend spikes. You're spending double. So if your campaign works really well, you're probably happy with that. It's probably okay if it's working really well. If it doesn't work very well, then it's all a total waste. But Google wins either way. So if it's working really well, you spend that $100 a day, and it's actually $200 a day for whatever period of time, and then Google starts to slow it down. So when Google starts to slow it down, you'll raise your daily budget because you don't want to miss out on those sales. You'll notice your ads aren't showing and your revenues have dropped and you haven't seen the conversions flowing. So you're going to raise your budgets and Google wins. If the ads aren't working at all and you end up spending a lot more than you thought you were going to spend and you shut it all down, Google wins as well. So they win there too. Every time you make a budget change, it resets the clock for that budget. So that double the budget spend, if you're making frequent budget changes, Google's allowed to spend double your budget every time you make a budget change. So it's a dark pattern. It's designed to take advantage of newbies. It's designed to take advantage of small businesses that don't know that rule or have a different expectation. And there's absolutely no good reason for it, no benefit to the user whatsoever. Another dark pattern, and this one's more hidden, it's not out in the open, it's harder to see, is bid floors. Nobody really knows the full impact of bid floors or how bid floors work. But it's a dramatic change, and it's been a gradual change over the years, boiling the frog. Bid floors are basically Google entering the bid auction. So the expectation is that you're bidding against other advertisers and that your bid on a keyword particularly long-tail keywords that have low volume, would generally be just slightly above what some other business is willing to bid for that keyword. But that's not how it happens in practice. Google has started setting bid floors for long-tail keywords because Google has discovered that even though those keywords have very low volume and very low competition, that sometimes they're incredibly valuable to your business. So for example, maybe you're a law firm and you're looking for leads and there's some long-tail term that's pretty obscure, only gets searched a few times a month. Well, previously those terms might have been a few pennies. Now those terms can be hundreds of dollars per click. Easily hundreds of dollars per click. So this is a change on Google's back end. This is just an invisible way that Google is able to harvest more from their existing customers. Another dark pattern, if you're using PMax in any way, shape, or form. PMax has a lot of different dark patterns that we can talk about, but one of the most insidious ones is the bidding against your competitors. And you have no visibility into this. A lot of times competitors will decide, maybe they'll even talk to each other, and they'll decide not to bid on each other's keywords for whatever reason. Bidding on your competitor's keyword in some cases can work. Conquesting is what it's called. Conquesting can work in certain situations, but most of the time it's a lot more expensive for you to pay for that click for your competitor's term than it is for your competitor to pay for a click for their own term. And that usually keeps people out of that for very long because it gets very expensive very quick and it's not very effective. When somebody is searching for your competitor, they want to go to your competitor and it's harder to divert them than you might think. So those keywords, those bids are usually very wasteful and very expensive. Well, within PMax, PMax is going to bid on those terms whether you like it or not. There's no way to block those terms from PMax. You can block them maybe at an account level. There might be some hacks, some tricks that you can do to block them or trick them into thinking those are your brand terms. But it's a heavy workaround. It's not a natural workaround, and it's something where Google can just turn up the dial and decide how much and how many times they want to bid on your competitors' keywords within that campaign. It's sort of a game to see how much the advertiser will tolerate. PMax is designed to harvest revenue for Google in a way that is to the absolute limit of what the advertiser will tolerate. So these are some of the dark patterns that you need to be on the lookout for if you're an agency or you're a small business or you're an agency that's just starting out or you're a small business that's been at this for a while. These things change over time. So what you might have an expectation of how it's going to work last month or last year, it changes really frequently, the changes are always in Google's favor. It's pretty rare that anything comes out that is designed solely to benefit the advertiser. There's always an angle for Google to make a little bit more out of it, and it's usually very asymmetrical. So nobody would need an agency right now because automation is so good, and AI coming along is going to make automation even better. No one would need an agency if Google was honest, but everybody needs somebody who spends a lot of time in this right now, who's in this daily, because if you don't, Google's going to take advantage of you.